This lady tried to pull into her driveway, but I was standing in the street in her way in the drizzling rain with my camera out, so she gets out of her car and asks me if I'm shooting the churches. I thought that sounded funny, but I said, yeah, I'm trying to put together some pictures for this project I'm working on to see what the churches in the town look like and the neighborhoods they're in. So I asked if she knew anything about the two churches she lived right in between. If she could tell me about their activity in the community. She was 63 years old and had lived there a long time, but said the place just wasn't what it used to be. The church on the left used to be wealthy, but when the neighborhood fell on hard times, a lot of their richer members fled to greener pastures. The more newcomers who were poor came in, the faster the wealthy ones went. They sent people down the nearby streets with pamphlets to try to recruit new members, but she said when they knocked on doors to houses, they had to make sure that they didn't look too poor. And if a black family came to church, that just scared off even more. The other church was charismatic, and back in the day it used to be vibrant. They had an open door 24/7, and she'd go in late at night to pray. But one time she said they were speaking in tongues, and the lady was just about to tell her that the Spirit was moving her to speak in tongues. She felt compelled to share her own vision that she recently had of the Virgin Mary when she was in prayer one night, and they told her that was wrong. She should go away and never come back. She said some of the most wicked people she knows are part of the Christian church. I asked if there was a counterexample, a positive experience, and she had to go back to when she was a little girl. Girl Scout camp was such a bore, but church camp was a blast, she said. Back then they had a sense of community and belonging, but as an adult all she got from the church was intolerance and judgment, closed-mindedness. I suggested that it's often those with closed minds that open their mouths the most. She laughed. She was on the verge of tears, but now she was bright-eyed and smiling. I asked if she'd been affiliated with the church since then. She said no. She didn't feel welcome. They were too disingenuous, dishonest, discriminating in their outreach, discouraging questions and different perspectives, denying her a voice, and saying she was dissenting from their doctrines. She said that was too bad. She was all for the separation of church and state, she said, but it'd be nice if the church was engaged in community, did more for the poor and the downtrodden. She said she knew the Beatitudes, she knew who Christ was, and the community could really use some good news and truth and hope. I asked if she meant that people needed a savior from the hell here and now, the hell that's all around us. She paused and said, yeah, I don't think I could say it better. She said she knew a lot of people around her drowning in darkness. They need a sense of belonging and community and something to hope for, to give meaning to their existence and suffering. They need a place where they can speak their mind and not simply be preached at, where they can ask questions without fear of response. I said, what if what you're talking about, that kind of hope and community and openness to dialogue, what if that were the church? It should be, and I truly wish it was, she said. It's so clouded and gray here, she said, and I knew she wasn't talking about the weather. I moved away to Chicago when I went to law school, and it was like I could finally see clear, like the sun was somehow brighter even in the shadows of skyscrapers, and I was ready to really make a difference. But then I came back here. I read in the Bible that Jesus was doing all these wonderful things everywhere except in his own hometown. That really resonated with me. I told her I often felt the same strange darkness, like a cloud hanging over this town, and I knew exactly what she meant, because after all, I'd moved here myself from Chicago. And we went on, standing there in the rain, but finally she said, just think, what a pleasure this has been talking, and only because you happen to be standing in front of my driveway taking pictures of these churches. And I said, some things are too strange to be mere coincidence. I would venture to call it ordained. I would too. By the way, my name is Catherine. We had not yet shook hands and introduced, but this has been no ordinary conversation. She said she was listed. I said I'd look her up. She said, I hope you do. We said, God bless, and parted ways. You see, I see Jesus walk when I sleep, and I hear Jesus talk when I dream. But just last week I saw Jesus walk in the streets, and he had a sign saying he'd work to eat, and a worn-out cup from the VP shaking a few dimes and pennies. But it wasn't just that week or just that meeting. He's still in the streets while I sleep, while I eat, while I dream, while I have heat. He is there, cold, bare, hungry, naked, poor, forsaken, dirty, crying, weeping, hurting, sitting, waiting, yearning, suffering, dying. to remind me he is rich beyond measure. He is like buried ancient treasure. He's hidden in plain sight. That's where you'll find him, where he is, where he found me, and he is living, breathing, alive, and I see him. I always see him when I have eyes to see, and I always hear him when I have ears to hear. He is here, now, was, is, and always will be.